I'm Julie Baumgardner, and this is the Marriage on the Daily podcast, the podcast designed to give you tools and encouragement to help you do married well on the daily. Because after all, it isn't the grand gestures that make or break your marriage. It's actually what you do or don't do on the daily that either builds a strong foundation or chips away at your core. You can do this, and I'm here to help. Welcome to the Marriage on the Daily podcast. I'm Julie Baumgardner, your host. Kenny Sandefer is my guest today. He is a licensed marriage and family therapist. He is the co-author of Created for Connection, 7 Conversations for a Lifetime of Love that he wrote with Sue Johnson. And he is passionate about equipping people to build secure, emotionally safe relationships that reflect God's love. He's married to Suzette, and he has a son and daughter, both grown, with kids, 5 grandkids that he's super proud of. And I have to say, one of the things that has been so amazing is to actually be in a training with Kenny and to learn from him, and also to find out that he has a farm and that he loves horses because, as you know, if you know me, you know I love horses. So, Kenny, I'm so glad you are with us today.
I'm glad to be here. I'm honored to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Well, I think that this is going to be fun, and I really want us to talk about Created for Connection because the Surgeon General a few years ago released a study saying that loneliness is at epidemic proportions, and I think it's easy to think about, oh, that's just people who are by themselves. But when you talk with married couples, so many of them say, I'm married and lonely.
Yeah.
And I know your heartbeat is helping people to find connection and to understand how important that is, cradle to grave. So lead us into that.
Okay, I'll do my best. Again, I'm very, very grateful to be here. This is my passion, and that's to, to help people find the love that God intended for them to have. And I really take that seriously. I guess if I could just say, maybe cast a kind of a vision here, maybe go back a little bit to the beginning here. I picture, if I picture Adam and Eve in the garden, okay, walking in the cool of the day with God, that there was such a unity, there was such a synchrony. I mean, I would say from a neuroscience perspective that Adam and Eve were involved, what we would call a neural duet.
Yeah.
That they were so connected that their nervous systems were in total sync with each other.
Yeah.
Of course, we know that's how God created us. He says it's not good for man to be alone. We're created in His image. That means He's a relational being. We're relational beings. That means that relational bonding is really what being in that image is. Mm-hmm. So we long to be close, not only just physical proximity, but emotionally close. We long to be heard, to be seen. All those things come with the way God created us in our original design. So just to make a leap here, so I think if we go to the fall, Genesis 3, what's interesting to me is I don't really think it's maybe so much the rule breaking, but it was relational betrayal.
Yeah.
And if you can imagine a couple being in a neural duet, meaning their nervous systems were actually in sync with each other and could operate independent of each other, but not without losing each other. Mm-hmm. And then suddenly finding themselves alone. Sometimes that helps me kind of imagine what isolation really looks like. That because it's so fascinating, because when God said it's not good to be alone, all neuroscience in the last 10 years says our nervous systems were not created to live in isolation. Mm-hmm. That they were to live connected to someone else. Mm-hmm. And so I think that first off, we got to start off like, what is the goal here, and is that a reasonable goal? And I
Yeah.
do think it's a reasonable goal because God's all about redemption and restoration, and we innately have those longings for closeness and connection. But also there was then the things people that Adam and Eve had to do to suddenly protect themselves when they found themselves isolated, and the fig leaves, so to speak.
Right.
So I mean, how that all then, of course, then that was a ripple effect that went throughout all creation and relationships today. But I'm just kind of this is sort of how I imagine things, how I think about it. And another
Right.
way I thing is like, I don't know, it's like a divine dance between the three, and that was interrupted, and now they're dancing alone. So many couples today lose each other over time, and they end up dancing alone.
Yeah.
So I love nothing I love better than to be with people who have begun to recognize that they don't have the love or the connection that they feel like God would have them to have, and come in and want to really find ways to work through that. So that's just kind of my image there, how I look at, just to set that up.
So I'm curious. I mean, you have done a lot of work with couples, and you've also trained, I don't know, thousands of therapists. I'm curious, what do you hear from couples themselves and from the therapists are the things that create the disconnection in marriage?
Yeah, well, that can kind of vary a bit. So I would think that sometimes people, if they have a good start, okay, and that they actually have, well, if they've experienced, let's say, a neural duet, I'll use that language throughout, that's
Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
Growing up, I mean, a secure attachment connection. When you cried out, people around you were accessible, responsive, emotionally engaged with you. Then there's some people that's then been their experience. There's others, that isn't a lot more probably. that isn't the case. We're not raised by perfect parents in any way, nor because it's not a perfect world. So
Yes.
that's a sort of the first question to ask. But a lot of couples come together, and let's say in the first year or so, it's just them, and it's. They have time to bond. They have time to connect. We know it takes 18 to 24 months to create an emotional bond. That's after you're married. So that's without
That's
interruption.
interesting.
That's without interruption. Okay.
Okay.
So if there's interruptions, you can see why that would take longer.
Right.
And so whenever there are those interruptions, then we look for fig leaves, really. We look for ways to protect ourselves. Our goal is to stay on our feet. Then we get and then so both parties, right, are trying to protect themselves and yet move to get seeking and longing for closeness is the way God made us, and then end up in these patterns. Where I don't know. I guess what I hear the most from couples is we just keep having the same arguments over and over again, or we
yeah.
keep having the same conversations over and over again, and we miss each other, and we both feel misunderstood at the end. And so, in every attempt to get closer and try to talk about it and try to work through stuff, it looks like at the end of the day we are further apart. Okay, and so why would we want to enter into a conversation again, another conversation again, if that's
It's
going
dangerous.
yeah, it's going to separate us. So to me, that's the commonality, regardless of how things start up. But if a child comes early, that's a significant challenge. It's not deviant, it's not anything wrong with it, but recognize that that could be a disruption, and that's a huge thing. We know it. There's nothing more wonderful than having a child and having children, but there's nothing more challenging to a relationship, actually, than having someone come into the house. So job change, loss, death, all kind of things can happen during that time whenever we're kind of creating that emotional bond with each other.
Can we go back for just a second, because you said something and I thought it's worth exploring a little bit, and that is I think sometimes, or at least in conversations that I've had with couples, they'll talk about not having that secure attachment early on in life. And they'll also say, I am not going to repeat that. I'm not going to do
Yeah.
that again. And they marry and struggle.
Yeah.
And so can you speak to that a little bit, because I know that can be overcome with intentionality and tools. So speak to that a bit,
Well,
and then
yeah.
we'll also talk about the other.
Sure. So, yeah, the first thing is that, yes, we know the first 18 to 20 months of our lives, our relationship with our caretaker, primary caretaker, significantly gives us patterns, creates these patterns of how we will relate the rest of our life. That's just the way it is. But so that's like let's just say that would be like the plan, okay, or whatever. But the ink doesn't dry on that. What the beautiful thing, and we haven't known this all that long, the beautiful thing is that we can actually, when we find ourselves in secure, safe connection with someone who's really accessible, responsive, and emotionally engaged with us, and vice versa, and there's mutual vulnerability, and we can confide in them, and then we could say, I mean, even in abuse situations, I had a client sit on my couch right over here the other day, and she said, "It comes for me. It's come for me. Will you hold me?" So even that is our life partners, our spouses, are agents of healing in our life if we have and can create that connection with each other. And that can happen, and it can change. We used to think that kids came from these horrible, abusive backgrounds and abandoned and whatever, orphanage and whatever, could never have. We just said, well, they'd have a better life, but they'll never be able to have a real kind of good life. Okay, we know that's wrong now. They really can if they're in that loving, healing environment. So I think, and this is debatable what I'm saying, but I really do think that's a part of why God puts us together in a marriage, that we can turn to the other.
Yeah.
And when people weren't there for us, or when we had pain and we couldn't speak that pain, or we spoke up about bad things that happened to us and nobody responded to us, and to have the person you've committed your life to that sits next to you and can look you in the eyes and be there with you, meet you in those dark places. I mean, I think that the divine essence of God's love flows
Yeah.
rampantly between us when that happens, and I have seen it over and over again. So
Yeah. I can recall having a conversation with a friend, and she had a tumultuous childhood and married a great guy. And for the first few years of their marriage, she would literally sabotage the relationship because she couldn't stand thinking that the shoe was going to drop and her
Yes.
not know when. So she just took care of that. And it made for a hard road there in the beginning, just trying to figure it out. And they're still married decades in, but it took her really time to learn to trust that what he said he meant, and that he wasn't going to walk away from her.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Even though he stayed in the room, right?
Stayed in the room.
He didn't leave the room. Yeah, and that's the antidote. That's the antidote to what happens. I mean, that's really trauma, is when someone doesn't stay in the room. We talk about trauma all the time. The ultimate trauma is isolation and
Yes.
being hurt and pain, not having anybody to turn to. So
Yeah.
I think I guess the important part of this is that this is to me is it's very important. So regardless where we come from, and regardless where we are in our marriage, this is God's design for us, and that is to be restored and to be healed. And there's nothing, and there's a lot of stuff out there that says that's pathological tell your partner you need them. You don't need anybody. You just need God. Well, we do need God. But may I remind you that when Jesus is facing the worst night of his life in the garden, that he fussed at the disciples because they weren't there for him.
Right.
He wasn't right. He didn't want to be alone in that.
Yes.
The human side of him.
Yeah.
So being able to be vulnerable like that, that's the scariest thing, right? To be vulnerable and be honest and to let people see those parts of us that we've never let anybody see.
Well, I think, you think about it as a child, it's okay to say, I need you, and to be needy. But as an adult, that a lot of times I think people think, oh, that comes across as weak. I can't do that as an adult. And yet,
Right.
that is the very thing that brings a lot of healing to
Absolutely. Yeah.
to be able to say, I need you. I need you right now to feel safe. And it also, as you walk that road together, brings healing. I do want to talk about what you were saying earlier about the couples who have the same fight,
Yes.
100 times, but it is the same fight. And why would we want to talk to each other? Because every time we try and talk, we end up feeling like we're further apart, not closer together. How do you help those couples figure out how to have the conversation and ultimately end up closer together?
I guess the first piece here would be help a couple become a student of that pattern that they're caught in and see it as a pattern instead of a victim of it. And the way to do that is to just become aware of that they are creating this together. Okay, regardless of the nature of what they come in with the conflict, that pattern they create it together. Well, when you begin to look at that and you begin to look at the steps, like, okay, so let me give you a quick example. So I hear a spouse say, he has no feelings. He doesn't. I ask him how his day is. He just says good. He doesn't let me in, and so there's a sort of a sense of urgency to kind of like, well, tell me something, or why can't you tell me? Do you even care? This is important to me. Why don't you care? And it ups the ante, and in that vulnerable moment, that person becomes more articulate, more pointed. They become more assertive, and the other partner, typically person on the kind of more on the withdrawn, avoidant kind of side from attachment theory perspective, shuts down. And if it's like you couldn't ask them their driver's license number or their social security number, they couldn't answer you that. Right. So the higher that tone gets, right, and then the more vulnerable you feel, you either become more hyperactive and want to address things, bring things up, or you want to just let it pass, maybe take it on the chin, say, oh, I'm sorry, yeah, I did it again, whatever, but it never really registers with you because you're just trying to get out of that tight place. So all patterns, that's the dominant pattern, but all the other patterns that happen in relationships all come and stem from that first one. And over time, they can look very different. Someone knocks until their hands are bloody, trying to reach their spouse, and then they give up. And then the other spouse kind of wake up and what's wrong, okay? Then there's just people who just kind of almost so careful with each other that they never really address things. And so that's kind of a drifting marriage. But yes. all those started somewhere along the line with someone bringing things up and not getting the response that they needed from it. And it's significant to be able to identify that, and that if we created this negative pattern together, we can create a new one.
Yeah. That's interesting that you say that, because I can remember early on in our marriage, I don't love conflict. I don't want to feel distance from Jay. And so he would come in and I could see in his eyes that something was off, and I'd say, what's wrong? And his response would be nothing. And I would kind of follow him through the house with, wait, no, I can see it in your eyes. I can tell there's something wrong. Yeah. And I can laugh about it now. It wasn't funny then. But it created a lot of tension for us. And finally, one day, he said to me, "You are asking me a question." And first of all, the question that you asked me, just in terms of what's wrong, I I know that something's off, but I can't. I'm thinking internally, and I can't tell you what's off at the moment. So
Yeah.
you pursuing me through the house is not going to help me think any faster.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, one, I appreciate that he could verbalize that to
Yeah.
me, and I had to receive that. And we're 37 years in, and we are both a lot better at that. But that's
Hmm.
not to say that there, just aren't moments where you just kind of
Oh,
find
yeah.
yourself slipping, and you got to, oh, wait a minute, I need to back up here.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that just for clarity, that it can happen with any one of us in terms
Oh,
of our coupleness, and just recognizing it and being able to speak to it in a
and,
way that your spouse can hear.
and those fig leaves are there for a good reason,
Yeah,
right? Those are protective strategies.
protection.
We're
Right.
not. They're going. They, we don't. No one needs to take them away from you.
Yes.
You need to be able to turn to each other in a way that you can have conversations and lean in and find new ways of sort of reaching each other without getting in the dance. And that can be. There's different resources that might be helpful, right? And if you've been stuck a long time, whatever you need help, you
Yeah.
go get more professional help or whatever, or
Yeah.
whatever. So, but it's nothing wrong with that. Everybody that walks and breathes and is in a relationship has a significant
Yeah.
pattern. I don't care if
Yeah.
it's your coworker, your daughter, your son, whatever. And but it's just it just takes a different conversation to have
Yeah.
those. Now, kind of go back to what you were saying, like, I don't know, sometimes I don't know what I need or I don't know what I want. And that kind of goes to the topic that everybody wants to kind of move away from a lot of times, which they'd rather have a logic explanation for what's going on and learn like some skills and stuff, although those are important. But the real issue, I don't know what I need if I don't know what I feel.
Wow.
So when
Great point.
a therapist or a counselor or you're in a program or you read something and it talks about feelings, that's the reason, because that is an adaptive something that God made us that way.
Hmm.
And so if I don't know what I feel, how in the world am I going to know what I need? If I feel scared, I know I need proximity seeking, come be with me. And by the way, if I can be vulnerable and say I'm scared, people will move toward you. If you have tears,
Hmm.
they come toward you. If you
Yes.
hold that down and it comes out in an angry way, people will move away from you at the
Yeah.
key moments when you're longing for someone to come to be with you.
Mm. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that's those sort of we call demon dialogues, right,
Yeah.
that kick in
Yeah.
and rob us from that intimacy. So we have to be able to, as I said before, God made us. We're bonding as we're inherently relational, and bonding is a part of that. And we long to be seen, heard, known, and but with that kind of can be a scary proposition. But how do we do that? By just letting people in on what's going on underneath.
Well, I know in your book, Creative for Connection, which I would love to talk about, what are the 7 conversations? But I know one of the things in the very beginning that you all talk about is that it doesn't matter how old you are.
Hmm.
We are always asking the question, do you love me?
Yeah,
Do you believe in me? Will you
yeah,
come when I call?
yeah,
And that's part of being human.
exactly. I mean, God, in the Old Testament, the word panim el panim, that meant when we're talking about with God, that means you're so close to God that you're sharing breath. Okay,
Mm, mm,
so when he talks about closeness, I mean, he's talking about legitimate closeness with
mhm.
him and with others and with
Yeah.
our
Yeah.
spouses. So and again, our nervous systems were never designed to live in isolation or by themselves. They were to be connected, and we're finding that with all kind of health things now. If you have a heart
Right.
attack in Finland, You have to take an online course to kind of shore up your relationship, because they know if you have a good relationship with your spouse during that season, that they reduce healthcare costs tremendously, because the chance of having a second heart attack is 2 times bigger if you're not in
A good relationship.
perfect comfort. So
Yeah.
there's all kind of thing. We have studies on actually all the homie tight and Creative Connection studies, where we're working with cancer survivors and Parkinson's disease couples in groups, working with that, meet kids, young folks with miscarriage,
Yes.
so they can turn to each other in those ways. And
Versus turning away.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, what are the 7 conversations that you encourage couples to have?
Okay. Well, here's how the 7 came. First of all, Sue, the number one, John Gottman and the rest of the world would
Yes.
say, the number one therapist in the world, and the best has the best research in the world. That's
Right.
what
Yes.
everybody's. She looked at all her therapy sessions and came up with what are the 7 conversations couples have to come out to, because the success rate was 70%. That's significant. So we can create a book or a program to where people can go through this without going through therapy. So that's the 7. So the first one's the demon dialogues, which I just mentioned. The first one is
Right.
like, find that negative pattern. How do we get in this same conversations? What do I do? What do you do? Okay, there's that part. But then the next conversation is the raw spots. So usually when we get big or we try to disappear, it's when we've hit a nerve, a real raw spot. And instead of getting vulnerable, maybe, and honest with it, which is kind of hard to do sometimes if you've never had an opportunity or much practice with that in your life, we either dance, right, get more pushier, we move away. So what is underneath that? Underneath, when I move away, what's going on underneath? Right before I move away, what happens inside of me? What, and then, right before I come after you, when I push things down, how do I, what is it that's underneath that? So that's those raw spots. And then we actually just run it through us. Well, the next is visiting a rocky road. That's just where we have a couple actually go through a situation where they had a rocky situation with someone else first.
That's good.
Okay, in their life, and then a coworker, family member, whatever, and then they have that conversation with each other. So it kind of breaks the ice. And then the homie tight conversation is where the couple actually turns toward each other from those deeper parts of themselves. Like when I get scared, like you don't care as much about me as I care about you, or whatever. I mean, this is what happens. I come for you. I ask questions because I want information to calm me down. And if I don't get that information, it makes me get bigger, and vice versa. So it's turning to each other from those deeper places underneath those positions. We call those adaptive emotions. Then we move into forgiving injuries and trusting again. We have those conversations around things in the past, and then bonding through sex and touch. We revisit sexuality from a place of emotional intimacy, and we see sexuality as an exclamation point, kind of at the end of the day, how close we feel. And then keeping your love alive is like, that's where we start to talk like date nights and maybe rituals, watching a TV series together, setting aside time to make sure you're intentional with each other. We call those bonding rituals. And in this particular kind of program here, we put that at the end. Sometimes people put that in the front.
Yeah.
But our experience has been, of course, I've worked as a therapist with very conflicted people, and to ask a couple to go out and have a date night and eat out, you're just maybe asking them to go fight in public.
Which isn't helpful.
No, or to sit there and realize you're the only two people in the whole restaurant that aren't talking to each other.
Yeah.
So a bonding a ritual, and that kind of comes after that. And those are really important to set aside those times and to maintain focus and to be able to really pay attention to that.
What I found with this book is that it isn't just for couples who are struggling.
No.
It actually could be really preventative. So if you're early on in your marriage and your goal is to have a healthy, strong marriage, this book and the opportunity to walk through the 7 conversations together. One, it could be really enlightening to talk about some of the issues that you just spoke to. I was thinking about everybody talks a lot about being triggered, and you were talking about being raw, feeling raw. And I read this quote earlier today, and then it said, when you get triggered, you don't act your age, you act the age of when that wound
Yeah.
occurred. And you don't think about that when you're in the moment,
Yeah.
but when you have time to kind of unpack that and process what in the world was going on, and you're asking, why did I feel that way?
And we can't even talk ourselves out of that, actually.
That's right.
That is a primal panic
Yeah.
that came very early in our life, and we have no language for that. And so that's why sometimes turning to each other from these deeper, softer, vulnerable places kind of breaks through all that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and the idea of actually walking through the book when you're not conflicted, when you're not
Oh, yeah.
struggling. I mean, it's great for couples who are dealing with some things, but it's also good to walk through it because I think it gives you knowledge and information and tools that help you to build a really strong foundation in your marriage.
Yeah, it does. And I mean, it's just growth, right? We're all about growth. And, actually, the closer I become to Suzette, who I love dearly, my wife, the more it frees me up to explore my inner and my outer world, which allows me to actually read and focus and increase my spirituality, the spiritual opportunities of growth and stuff that open up for me. My prayer life, my conversations with God is very much impacted by that. If I have this safe base and safe haven at home, so I think I would say I would put that into a spiritual practice, because if we're out here on our own trying to find that, there's a lot of things that can disrupt and shut off our creativity and our ability to think clearly and to really grow. So.
You make me think about so many times we hear people talk about my spouse completes me. And they put a tremendous amount of responsibility on their spouse for being their everything. And they're disappointed because their spouse can't live up to it. That their spouse disappoints them, or something happens. And I think it's, Created for Connection, I think is just such a great reminder that the one who completes you is the Lord. That vertical connection is absolutely imperative
Yeah.
to.
He's the ultimate co-regulator of our effect, for sure.
Yes.
Right. So if we
Yes.
get in our cycle, we can take a breather and walk and pray, and I can come back. Hey, I still get in my cycle. It don't go away.
Don't
Me and
we
Sis
all?
said, but I can come back. And the deal is too, though, we repair. It may take a while.
Yes.
We can repair. And when you repair, you come out of it better than you ever came into it. Your relationship is really strength. I
Yes.
think life and relationships are about order, disorder, reorder.
Oh, that's
It's
great.
not pain. It's not
Order,
painless.
disorder, reorder.
And so
Yeah.
it's not like we reach this special place in our relationship and we just hang there. No, there's always something that's going to bring us to disorder and bring us to force us to be vulnerable with each other. And then we come out of it closer. Which
Yeah.
prepares us for the other things that not if they happen, just when they happen in life.
Yeah. No kidding.
Mhm.
I just went through my mother having dementia,
Yeah.
and watching having a spouse that walks alongside you when you are
Mhm.
dealing with something traumatic like that, the safety in that, and just the caring, um, created deeper intimacy. And I've heard it said, if you're not growing, you're dying.
Mhm.
And just, I think, to your point, that no matter what age you are and no matter what year you are in your marriage, there's always things that will be happening in your marriage: order, disorder, reorder.
Yes, always,
Yeah.
always.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we're breathing.
Yeah. Well, gosh, thank you so much
Mm.
for such insightful wisdom and practical tools that we can take and use. I'm just curious. I ask everybody this, so I'm going to ask you,
Yeah.
what's one thing that you would tell couples if you do this on the daily, it will be significantly impactful to your marriage? What would you say to them?
I would say cut everything, all electronics off, everything off. Just sit down and just look eyeball to eyeball and check in with each other, and just say, how you see yourself in this relationship today. That's a scary thought to ask, but it's if we don't ask those questions, or if we don't make that time in this world as busy as it is, and it's just nothing but getting busier. There's
It's
more
true.
distractions now that I think ever could be. So being present, got to be present with yourself first, okay, and then
Right.
take time to be that, and then be present with other. It's just that's to me is that's the juice. Yeah.
Yes, I love that. Thank you so much. And thank you all so much for joining us today on this episode of Marriage on the Daily. You can visit marriageonthedaily.com for more resources and information. We will definitely have Creative for Connection and other resources in the show notes. If you enjoyed this episode, it's really important that you share it with others so that they can also learn and grow. And until next time, remember, it's the little things that matter on the daily in your marriage.